The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, the official podcast for single women over 35. Who I am Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships and seductive singlehoods. And more specifically, I help single city women over 35 who have given up on love, discover their passions and their purpose, and stop getting ghosted, honey. No more getting ghosted. So you are listening to Ask for Candy on your smart device, maybe with the TuneIn app on Armed Radio Global, or you're listening in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. We're now available on iHeartRadio, so I believe that if you have an Alexa, you can ask for candy. Or perhaps you're joining us live on the Facebook. And if you are, don't forget to pop on over and become a member of my group, the Creative Love Collective, and become a member of Armed Radio Group News so that you can know when we're coming on, what we're up to, what's going on with us, and about all the other really great podcasts that are on the channel. Also, you can call me during this broadcast, 1-800-508-5431, if you have any questions or commentary. And you can also, like I said, if you're on live, you can comment and question live. Then you can also email me if you're introverted. askforcandypodcast@gmail.com, and those questions will be answered in a later broadcast. Like I said, I'm Candace Harper, Love Coach, and my talent is conversation, my passion is personal growth, and my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And what this show is about, each week we have lively conversations about different topics relating to love and relationships. Sometimes I bring on special guests. Tonight I brought on a very special guest who I'll introduce in a moment. Always we get a chance to laugh, cry, or just learn something new. And that is why this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your love situation, because that's all about whatever makes you happy. And our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. And tonight, we are continuing my new series. Actually, it's not, I can't call it new anymore because I've been doing it for a few weeks now. Falling in Love, the era of new beginnings, because it's fall now, right? Officially, we're in fall. And tonight's topic is how to use dating apps after 40 and what the good men are doing. What are the good men doing on the dating apps? Let's find out, and what they're saying about the dating apps, because I feel like everybody's having a different experience. And so the goal of this show is to talk about the difference in dating for people over 40 and what is the best way to make the most of the online experience and actually be successful with it. So tonight, I brought on my special guest, Lee Schultz. Lee, my friend from high school. As a matter of fact, for those of you who can't see, tonight I wore my jean jacket because I wanted to pay homage to the 80s, which was when I last knew Lee and would run into Lee on a regular basis. So Lee, if I can give some personal details about you. Lee is a divorced father of 3 with a great career, a home, children who are old enough to cook for themselves, girls, and a great personality. He works out and stays looking good. He also likes to travel and have fun. He's an avid runner and a regular listener to my podcast, so you know I love him especially for that. Lee, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to actually be here. I couldn't make it to New York live, so I'm doing the very next best thing that I can, sharing some time on the World Wide Web with you. It's good to see you and talk to you. We go back a way long way back to the time when
that was a long time
ago. we were still teenagers. So Seems like a long time ago at this point, but I'm glad to be here. I was telling my kids I was going to come on here and talk with you and anybody that was willing to listen to us, and they said, "Dad, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to be charming and funny." And both of my daughters looked at me and said, "Dad,
yes, and leave it to your kids to be your own worst critic, right?"
I'll do my best, but we'll kind of get started from there. They are. They are.
I love it. Well, that's good because you know what? That means all bets are off. We can talk about whatever. Right? It's good. So
none of them are listening. They decided it was safer that way because
using dating apps after 40. Because, like I said, you and I knew each other back in high school before when there was no Instagram and there was no Facebook. None of these things existed. And I feel like we're old enough to remember what it was like to actually meet people face to face. Perkins. Jean jackets.
Yeah, when we would sit in Burger King or in King's or Perkins and all hang out in our denim. You're right, in the denim.
Right? No, like I feel like not only did we hang out, but it was a time when people were just much more connective. Don't you feel like that?
Mm. I was talking to somebody the other day about this whole idea of the dating app, and she was 2 years older than me. She's 49. I'm 47, and we were talking about that whole idea of how we used to do things and how we used to get together, and it was an interesting lead into the conversation with her and I and some of the things that we were talking about.
Right?
We used to spend a lot of
or text. Smiley face emoji, eggplant emoji, peach emoji. Yes. So. Right?
Somewhere.
Well, don't tell me you asked your kids. Did you ask your kids?
Swipe.
And that's the thing too. I feel like people who are your kids' generation. It's like, do they even know what it was like to not have technology? And they're more knowledgeable about this stuff than we are, right?
That's much different. That's right. Right. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, eggplant.
Yeah.
What's the eggplant? I finally figured.
I'm sure. I'm totally sure. So I found this article written by Julie Brown. I don't know if it's the comedian Julie Brown or downtown Julie Brown or a whole nother Julie Brown. But anyway, she wrote this article about a woman named Joanna Coles, who she's the chief content officer of Hearst Magazines and the author of a new book called Love Rules: How to Find a Real Relationship in the Digital World. Which I think is really interesting because
they are when you have
the last couple of relationships. I feel this echo. Like I hear what you were saying like 5 minutes ago is coming through my headphones. For those of you who are listening live, I have like a crazy echo on leave. So if I sound crazy, it's me listening to what he just said 5 minutes before. Anyway, whatever. Hopefully you guys hear us clear and hear us straight. Anyway,
really
what were you going to say? Were you about to say something?
Fast.
Oh, okay. Right? Can you hear any echo, Lee? You do? Okay, good. So it's not just me. I feel like a crazy person. Anyway, so thank you. She wrote this book called How to Find a Real Relationship in the Digital World. And what she figured out was that the secrets to digital dating, it's all about going back to the pre-app world, which I thought was interesting because if that's true, then we have an advantage, right? Like those of us who know how to do that. And like I said, we're around at a time when people did actually meet in a bar or meet face to face, right?
This was if anybody.
So Coles insists that Love Rules, her book, is not just for the single millennial looking for love, but also for men and women getting back out there and re-entering the dating scene after many years. In fact, more middle-aged adults are dating digitally than ever before. A Pew study examining online daters in 2013 and then again in 2015 showed the use of digital dating services jumped by almost 2/3 for adults ages 45 to 54, which is, I hate to date us, but that's our age group, is it not? While the concepts of Tinder and Bumble may sound like a foreign language to some, anybody can and should use these dating apps, she says. And so, she gives a list of like, what is her advice for exactly what you should do. And what I want us to kind of do is maybe dissect her advice a little bit, maybe give a little bit of what we do, our own kind of methods, our own kind of like how we make it successful. If you're willing, if you're game to talk about that, you game to talk about that? All right. Well, what are some of the ones? Do you want to say which ones you're on or no? I feel like you might be advertising a little, but what's wrong with that?
I'm game. I've tried several of the apps. I've been out there a few times. Sure. No, that's okay. My name is Lee. I'm 47 years old. I'm single. I've been on several apps. There was a point in time after my divorce that I had to kind of figure out what was out there and what I could do. And when I got into the dating apps a little bit, I refused to pay for an app. So something like a Match.com or Match in general or Zeus and some of the other ones that you pay for, I didn't want to deal with because I didn't think you needed to pay to find a good dating app. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time on Tinder and a lot of time on Bumble. I actually did break down at one point and paid for a month of Match, and I found it no better than what I was getting from the free services. And then I also recently tried Zeus as well. Now, interestingly, when my kids found out that I was actually using dating apps, and I told my oldest daughter, I said, "Hey, I have a Tinder profile," and she yelled at me. She's like, "Dad, you know what Tinder's for, right?" It was like, dating. Tinder's for dating. It's for me to find somebody to go out with. She goes, "No, Dad, it's for hooking up. You got to get on another app." So I discovered Bumble shortly after that. So I've gone back and forth on them, and I think the point that you were making and the point from the article was that you got to kind of go old school with the approach of how you handle things. And that's really where, kind of figuring out the rules of the whole game is a little bit different, because that whole superficial swipe left, swipe right becomes a little challenging because you're basing it on nothing other than a quick glance at somebody. You don't know them. You haven't got to talk to them. Yeah. And a lot of the people don't even fill in a profile. So it's hard to even get an idea of who you're talking to. And folks that are using Tinder for what allegedly Tinder is intended for, they don't really care about the profile anyway. They just want to say swipe left, swipe right. This is the person I want to hook up with tonight. And for somebody who's 47 years old who has a career and wants to be the man
or the profile area where you get to write about yourself, it's a really brief, right? Like you only get to put a couple lines or something like that. It's almost like a tweet.
There's a whole different idea of how to use these things. So, the old school approach mixed in with the new school, I think, is really important. Right. That's right. There's definitely a character limit. And then the hard thing about some of the apps is you're able to link your other social media profiles in there, and some of them you're not. Some of them, there are algorithms. They weed everything out that has anything to do with Instagram or Snapchat, IG, SN, or however you do it, and it picks up profile names. But the good thing is with things like Tinder and Bumble, you're able to include some of those things so that you can get a better idea. And now that the apps are linking your Instagram and your Spotify and some of those other things so that you can get in there, and your bit emojis, of course, or you can get in there on some of them as well. I've swiped left a whole lot, I'm telling you, and that's part of the downfall of the dating apps, because you start to do that left for whatever reason. You want that physical attraction when you see
I hear you. I love that it sounds like you have like somewhat of an expertise on them, which is going to make this really juicy when I talk about what Joanna Cole says
swipe left
that you're supposed to do with all of these things too.
Picture,
so she says that online dating is a bit like Costco. There's an enormous range of options.
Kind of go through
which I think is very true. I mean, for me, that's what makes it difficult, because I'm one of those people who's like, I like the new shiny object.
If it's somebody that you
Right?
think
So
that
if there's way too many options, I'm like, I'm lost. It's
you
like
also want to
analysis
go
paralysis.
through and take a look
And
at
she
the
says that, you know,
pictures as well.
when you grow up in a small community, we're desperate for a friend's cousin to come to town, for some new person to connect with. You know, before dating apps were around, dating apps are good, she's saying, because they provide all of these options. When you live in a city like I do, it's like options upon options upon options. I think almost too many options. But the first thing she says not to do is to not put all your eggs in one basket. Like she says, you joined Bumble, but that doesn't mean your perfect match is just swipes away. Online dating is merely a tool to connect you with other people. So don't stop meeting people in real life. Go out for happy hour after work, join an intramural soccer team, try a new workout class. She gives all these suggestions. Dating apps are meant to be an addition to your repertoire. They are not the cure-all, and they certainly won't do the dirty work for you when it comes to love. I have a true confession to make about that. I mean, I'm like, physician, heal thyself, because here's what I do. I go on about my life. Like I'm always at networking events. I'm always at social things. I'm always at places where I could potentially meet men. But I don't go to those places to meet men. I go to them to build my business, right? I go to them to build my, social media following, that sort of thing. Like I'm always business minded when I'm out meeting people. The only thing that I kind of use as a dating outlet is a dating app. And like, it's by default. It's not like a rule that I follow. But when I'm out, and I say this to say I could still potentially meet somebody that I really, really like. But when I'm out, I'm not out. I put all my eggs in that one basket of that dating app. And to tell you the truth, I'm not that thrilled with that dating app. So I think her advice went
a large part of my entire career and position, I spend days. I talk to doctors, or I talk to therapists, I talk to different professionals. That part of my responsibility is to recruit and retain, and the whole idea of socialize. We have to bring the right people in for for our facilities, for our to work with our clients and the people that we serve. But when it comes to my personal life, I almost wholeheartedly rely on the dating apps to swipe. Because when I go to the gym, my purpose is at the gym is to work out. When I go run, my purpose is to run. When I'm dad, my purpose is dad. So I don't really block off all the time that I would need to go meet. I'm not a bar person, so I don't go hang out until, last call, hoping to meet somebody sitting next to me at the bar. So, I rely on something like a Tinder or a Bumble, or a Plenty of Fish or an OkCupid to go into, hey, at least I can make that initial first swipe right, make the connection, and then that's when it gets tricky, because then you have to start to rely on other methods to initiate those conversations, to get to know each other, or just to simply determine, are you really somebody I actually want to talk to, even though we matched? So that's where the Scooby-Doo social media company comes in, where you got to go on and you're looking them up on Facebook based on the name and something you see in a picture, or based on something they put in their profile. And, you hope you're lucky that you find them, so then you can find out a little more about them before you really start to delve into a whole lot of conversation or getting to know each other.
And as you're saying that, I'm wondering, though, is it something that's just happening to us as a society? Because there is a certain level of, like, carefulness in that, right? Like when back in the day when we had to just meet people face to face, and we did just go out. I mean, first of all, like the going out to bars to meet people, I agree with you. Like that's not my style. I don't think you meet great people in bars anyway.
There's a reason they're in the bar.
Exactly, especially if they're there, every night. But like, I think that there's a certain trepidation when you can sort of get someone's social media and get their background and know a whole lot more about them before you choose to get to know them, right? As opposed to like back in the day when we used to just meet face to face. But then you wonder, like, is that a better thing or not? Like, I feel like on the one hand, maybe in the world that we're living in, the society that we're living in, there is some safety in it. But I'm also a big believer in like the taking of risks, Yeah. And in as much as I only use a dating app for dating, and it's something I fell into by default, I just let myself go into that mode. like I look back on days of old, the days of yore, and there was actually a lot of enjoyment in the mystery of meeting somebody brand new.
There was.
Because they saw you on the street and thought you looked phone number or something like that, or I don't know, saw you in the library.
Yeah, see, I'm not a brave guy.
No.
That whole idea of like, hey, when you go out and like, no, I don't. Like, oh my God, it's mortifying to me. It's not something that, I or anybody I think looks forward to.
Yeah.
So the dating apps have been nice, and the idea of getting to know them has been a little bit interesting lately, because I matched with somebody recently, and it's a slow start to a conversation, and then early on in the conversation, like I said earlier, her response was, "Hey, remember the days when people used to get together and meet each other?" And like, yeah, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, let's go get coffee, or let's go get a glass of wine together sometime." And it went from the whole conversation on the app to, yeah, let's set this date and let's go do this instead of talking on here, which was kind of the kickback to the old rule. Somebody introduced us. It's the dating app instead of our friend. So let's go out and
totally
run at this thing and see.
That's a perfect segue into the next thing that Joanna Cole says is the thing to do, which is to take it offline as soon as possible. And I feel like even people our age are sometimes very fearful about that. Like like I said, I do date through the one app. But if I'm going to, let's not just message each other forever. Like, I'd rather, like you said, let's just get right to the date. She says, when conducting the research for the book, she was most surprised to see a central theme crop up. People were keeping their communication online for a long time before meeting in real life, like the long texts, flirting exchanges. But I think also what happens when you do that is you develop this fantasy of who the person is, right? Like, based on the text messages. Some people give very good text. And I'm not just talking, right? And I'm not just talking about sexting, not necessarily just sexting, but they just give good text, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, you get them in person. And if you've envisioned this really great person, it's like, not quite.
So it's almost like while you're face to face, you got to start texting each other.
Right?
Again, and that's make the conversation.
No bueno, right? She says her strongest piece of advice is not to waste your time in a lengthy text flirty exchange with someone. Yeah, it's just the same thing that we're seeing. So I see that Jeffrey Lee is watching, and Jamie from the V Club is here. Hi, Jamie. And Julio and Joe is on.
Jeff, hi, Jamie.
Right, and Brandon is on. So you guys hit that like button if you enjoy this conversation, or just because you like us. Okay, so the next thing that Joanna Cole says is to do date night right. And I feel like I'm going to love this rule because I'm all about a traditional date. I don't know what's wrong with millennials if they're not doing it. I feel like they, from what I hear, the millennials that I know, it's not as formal and traditional as it used to be. Like anybody pays, all bets are off. It's, whatever. But she says, don't just sit across the bar staring at each other thinking, is this the one? Because no date can withstand that pressure. I do agree with that. Right.
I agree. The whole idea of the discomfort of staring at each other while you do a shot, drink a couple glasses of wine, or see how much caffeine you can pour into you at a coffee shop, it loses the idea of spending that one-on-one time together where you're actually involved in something. This time of year is perfect for things, corn mazes and hay rides or those kind of activities, because you're in the fall, or you have the haunted houses if everybody's in the getting scared and running from something going on behind you. But, the idea of being active and doing something together, even for me as a runner, I run 3 or 4 days a week, easily. And, to have somebody that's into those kind of activities is amazing, because, even though you're out running next to each other, doing things next to each other, at least you have a common thing going on where it creates the conversation instead of somebody trying to make up a conversation.
And also, I think, especially when you do anything that's sort of competitive a little bit, like I'm always a big fan of things like batting cages or like driving range and stuff like that. It's like you get to see little bits of that person's personality that I think once we're engaged in things, like sometimes the mask comes off a little bit. Like Chris Rock says, the representative lowers down a little when we're engaged in activity. So you really get to see a person, even if it's something like going to Dave and Buster's or something, if it's a casual date or, any sort of activity, right? If you're adventurous people, maybe you're going to go skydiving or something like that. But you really get to see who a person is when they're engaged in an activity rather than trying to just show you a facade or be on their best behavior.
Right. That's true.
Right. It's a good one. That's a good one. I went on I have to say this like little side story that I always tell people. This was like when online dating was semi-new. And I was sort of going back and forth communication with this guy for a couple of weeks. And then he was like, oh, we should meet. Let's meet up. And we met up at a bar to sit across from each other to judge each other. But the crazy thing was, right, it was back when social media wasn't so attached to the dating apps. So it was probably more like early 2000s or whatever. And so, you know, I saw the pictures that were on his profile and we communicated back and forth a little bit. And, you know, I really had no high expectations of what he was going to be like. I just figured he would be who he said he was going to be. And so I get there to meet him and he was him, except like 150 pounds ago, which I'm not fat shaming. I'm not fat shaming because I actually don't necessarily care about that. If you're a good person and you care about yourself and all of that, but it was him. He was so uncomfortable because when I got there, I didn't recognize him at first. And I think he realized that he didn't represent himself accurately. And so he just sweated the whole time, just like,
wow,
just like buckets of nervous sweat and uncomfortability. It was terrible. Right? It's crazy. That's but that, I mean, I say all of that to say, like, you know, luckily because of social media and social media is attached to a lot of our profiles and things like that, you can sort of, like you were talking about, you can vet people a little bit more. And I also think that this is a time where people are a little bit more honest and accurate about who they are. But that goes back to the, like, having the first date be a date where it's all about sitting down and judging each other.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Exactly. And sometimes you wanna.
Across the table,
sometimes you really wanna. I see Jonathan and Jennifer and Lee, you're watching too. Did you know you're watching Facebook Live? Right. So
there's gotta be.
Next thing she says is, "Don't press fast forward."
I am.
Which I think is interesting that she says that because it sort of contradicts with the taking it offline as soon as possible. Right? She says, texting or talking on the phone for a period of time can manufacture a sense of false familiarity, like we were talking about. But you don't know that person before you spend time together. Coles urges daters to take it slow and not let the digital communication accelerate the relationship. You cannot fast forward human relationships, which that to me sounds like total contradiction. Maybe she's talking about maybe finding the balance.
Maybe. I can tell you one of the challenges of the dating apps has always been how soon do you get a phone number? How soon do you ask for a phone number or give a phone number? I've had situations where you've chatted with somebody for 3, 4, 5 days a week, 2 weeks, and you're like, hey, let's get off this app, let's get a number and let's go do something kind of thing. And the response is, hey, I'm not sure I want to give my number out. Or the next person is sending you dick pics or other pictures, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what gets sent.
Right away. I mean, you're like, hey, how are you? Hey, check this out. Oh, wait, I didn't ask for that. I don't need to see that, and I don't send that, kind of thing. So, there is some unwritten rules or some etiquette, I guess, to do that, but it really just seems situational and dependent on the person. So the contradiction of, hey, let's get offline as quickly as possible, but hey, don't hit fast forward too quick.
Right, like it's a really fine line to walk. There definitely is
a balance, I would say, to things.
Let me ask you about that, but with the asking for the phone number, though, because I also have another thing that I really hate. I hate it, and you tell me the truth if you do this or not. When you're on the dating app and a guy wants to take it further, wants to talk to you, maybe wants to meet offline, but rather than ask you for your phone number, just gives you his and says, call me. That kills it for me.
I can tell you that sounds to me that's kind of his way of saying, do you want to take this farther? If I give you my number and you text or call me, it's almost like a I guess a shit move. Instead of saying, let me text you or let me call you, can I have your number? So and in some ways I don't know if it's old fashioned, not old fashioned. If for me, if I'm going to take somebody out when it was 1989, and you had the rotary phone on the wall or a little, whatever it was back then, it was, can I have your number?
Right.
So you just go ahead and you make that call, and it took 10 minutes to
right.
make the call because you had
and your mom could pick up the other line.
Back around so many times, but and everybody in the house listened to you because you were standing in the kitchen or the living room with the phone to your head, and you were hiding in the corner. Now we're running around with cell phones, which exactly.
I hear that.
Exactly. So things have changed so much that, me, I'm 47 years old, and I still have to look at my, almost 20-year-old daughter and go, is this the right way to do this on this app? Yeah. Is it okay if
it is
hey,
it is, and which is why I think that those people who
and this person
even I can't speak from obviously from the point of view, the perspective of a millennial, but I feel like my advice to millennials would be having an understanding of what the old traditional ways are, because so few people are like what you're saying, that it was a chicken shit move for a guy to throw you his phone number. But a guy who says, I really am enjoying talking to you, can I call you, what's your phone number? Like that is not what a lot of guys are doing. So a guy who does that stands out. I think that's a pretty amazing thing to do. I don't know, like the ladies who are listening in right now, please comment and let me know if you feel like you're comfortable with that. Because I've also had women say that they feel unsafe, or they feel like they don't want to give too much of their information right away. I mean, I don't understand what the harm is in giving a phone number. But for somebody who's dealt with a stalker or dealt with someone who's dangerous, maybe they have a whole nother thing. But how often does that really happen, right? Percentage wise. Back in the day.
The reality for a stalker or a dangerous thing is it really any greater now than it was
and with no
when
cell
we
phone.
were younger, before the dating apps, before the cell phones? Because we would meet somebody on a blind date somewhere we may have never been before. We would show up at we'd have a quarter in our pocket or a dime in our pocket so we can make a call on a payphone or something, and we would meet somebody, or we would go with friends, or we would have friends show up there and check in on us or something. Now it's all electronic, how we do that. But the reality is dating is dating, and
so true.
It's in the social media and the apps and things like that to initiate the conversations, because the truth is, in the world, we've taken so much time to do everything else except take care of our own love lives sometimes, and sometimes we don't take the time to communicate. We don't take the time to create quality relationships. And we at our age, as if we're dating at almost 50 years old, and we're using apps, and we're looking through our bifocals to see who we're swiping on at this point in time. We've gone through it. We've carried our baggage. We're checking it at the door. We know what we can take. We know what we'll carry, and we know what we're willing to give out. And for a guy like me,
So do you feel like you're somebody who is very crystal clear about who that soulmate would have to be? Like, have you done that work, or are you just like, I'll know her when I see her? I feel like a lot of people are like, I'll know them when I see them.
Retire before I've worked more than I have left to go. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking about what the beach is going to look like and how many coconuts I'm going to sell on a given day with a bottle of rum next to me, that kind of thing. But so it's the dating experience, I'll tell you. Yeah. I was married for 16 years, and for the
interesting,
14 we were together. 2 years we worked on ending everything, and I've had two serious relationships since then. One was a very long relationship, and one was a much shorter relationship. And every step of the way has been a learning experience for me. So of the marriage, what I learned is I was important, but I don't feel that I was ever treated importantly, but I didn't stand up for myself the way that I should have in situations. So regardless of what the circumstances ever were or what the specific situations were, I allowed that to happen. So as much as I can blame somebody else, the truth is I have to take responsibility for what I did and didn't do. So you move on to the next long relationship, which was almost 2 years. And I learned how I wanted to be treated. And I learned how that feeling of being special was, and I communicated better. And I learned to stand up and say more and be more and be more actively involved in my emotional life versus just the day-to-day things going on. And then I met somebody at some point where it was a shorter relationship where I was convinced that for the first time ever, I might have met the one that really was the one that I never really knew, the feelings that I never really had in certain ways. And that ended in a ball of fire, and it got a little crazy at the end. But it also taught me more of what I want, more of what I know. So I absolutely positively have this picture in my head of what she looks like. I really do. I really have this picture, and it has nothing to do with the way a person physically looks. It has everything to do initially with who they are. It really is. Attraction is important, and we all want to have that physical attraction. It is very important, but that personality, that style, that the confidence, the different things that I've experienced in bits and pieces along the way, that I'm taking the best of everything that I've learned and trying to apply it into what I really want to see and really want to experience and really want to feel. But I also know within myself the lessons that I've learned along the way. I've made mistakes, and I learned from the mistakes, and that's really important too, because you always talk about the healing process, and you got to heal yourself. And I always tell people when they ask me, hey, I'm going through a divorce, and I'm like, you need to learn to be alone. And I've kind of changed that a little bit. It's not about being alone. You need to learn to deal with feeling alone. And there's a difference between being and feeling alone, because when you're afraid to feel alone and you avoid that feeling of being alone, and you go and you get to know people who you shouldn't get to know, or you take chances on people that you normally wouldn't take chances with to avoid that feeling of alone, you're not healed, and you have healing. And that's really important, at least the way I look at things. So I'm in a place in my life where I can feel alone, I can be alone, I can be with people, I can be without people. My priorities are my priorities, and they change on any given day based on my 3 kids and what they're doing and my activities with them. But at this point in my life, I have the time to devote to building a quality relationship with the person that is
I love what you said, and what really resonated with me out of what you said about
in a way
someone that you want who's equally committed and involved and all of that, and having that in your life, and being at an age where it's like, I kind of, I've lost my point a little bit because I can hear your echo. But what you were saying really resonated with me, because you're right. It is a lot of what I say about healing, because I do believe that we attract our mirrors, and the mirror is how we treat ourselves, right? So if we allow ourselves that healing time so that we can get back to treating ourselves well, because a lot of times we come out of divorces and breakups and things like that, we ain't treating ourselves all that well. And, that's why we were struggling with treating the other person very well, or vice versa. So, that healing process, and then, like you said, when you're ready for that commitment, you're ready for that, bringing someone like that in your life, it's so important that you are good with feeling alone. And what I think we do is that we try to quickly medicate every feeling that we think is a negative feeling, when so much of the solutions and so much of the healing is the allowing that feeling of loneliness, especially after, like you said, you were married for 16 years, right? So that feeling of loneliness, probably even if I think when you break up with someone that you hated, that feeling of loneliness still comes over you, especially right afterwards, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. it does, that to actually be in a committed relationship and to feel alone, horrifying. And like I said, I would love to go, it's her fault, but the truth is I had responsibility in how I felt. I had responsibility in addressing how I felt. So yeah.
Unconditionally. And I also love what you said about the taking of responsibility, because I think that's where the healing comes into. The fact that you take responsibility for what you contributed and what you brought, I think that's what makes all the difference too. 3
kids, but you do learn and you do get better and you do grow, and that's the beautiful thing about it all. And at some point in my life, I'm either going to find that perfect person or I'm going to get a dog. It's one or the other. The dog will like me whether I'm asleep or awake. I'll be fine. It's just how it works.
Right.
Yeah, and every relationship I've had, every long-term relationship has been amazing in some way.
Talking about pressing fast forward,
and that's a great thing. You move forward now, and now back into the dating world. And you're trying to figure out left from right, and where's the profile, and how do we do this kind of thing? And it's fun. You meet some wildly crazy people, and in the conversations early on if you want to continue talking or not. I met a lady in one of the apps. I think it was Plenty of Fish.
I know, right?
I'm a little skeptical of that one these days. But
about what you're saying is that when we meet these different people online, I think it's just so important to be really clear about what it is that you want. Because the reason that you were able to say no to beer and porn, I mean, besides the fact that you're probably just a decent guy, and that's not your thing. But the reason that you're so easy, like you can easily say no to it, is because it sounds like you're just clear about what it is you want. Like for me, the first time around on dating apps, I was not clear about what I wanted. I just figured I'd bump into somebody and it would be great. And, the being alone wasn't comfortable for me. And so I would meet these guys and there was no way they were right for me. And I'm wasting time talking to them, trying to see if I can make it happen.
What's your address?
Talk to them enough that they'll be somebody I like a little bit better. Whereas now, I'm so clear. It takes no time. Just like you said, like if someone comes with some craziness, it's I'm not down for that. And I'm okay with it. But, I don't need to try to change you into anything.
So it's welcome to the millennial generation or
right?
whatever comes
Beer
after
and porno
that.
sex. Let's do it.
More interesting. We'll see. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was 20 years old, I would have been, hey, what's the address? Beer and porno sex, we're good. But that's just not it right now. So, I've been thinking a lot lately, the Tinder profiles and the Bumble profiles, and as you write these things, and some people are honest, some aren't, and I often wonder, the ladies must have the hardest time on these apps because when they go in and they create these profiles, and the first thing they say is, "I don't want pictures of your junk," and that's how we lead in. That's hard. That's really harsh because people are really out there looking for something long-term and committed. And there's times where I think that I just need to change the entire profile.
I feel like if you do that, you might lessen the quantity of people that you hear from, but the quality will skyrocket.
Say my future wife or whatever.
I think you'll get three possible possibilities compared to 30 beer and porno sex. Do you know what I mean?
This is what I dream of.
But even on Plenty of Fish does have a reputation for being very crappy. Even on there, I feel like a well-written profile, it'll still weed out. And oh my gosh, when I was on Plenty of Fish, some of the stuff that I would get in my inbox, it was just what is happening? But when I got really specific on my profile, it definitely lessened the amount of messages that I got vastly. But the quality improved. I won't say it was great quality, but the quality definitely improved. You know what I mean?
Try.
Right? But I don't know. I love the idea of writing a letter to your future wife.
Plenty of fish.
something to think about. I feel like that woman would be like, oh my God, that's him. Because she'd be just as clear as you are.
Yeah.
Saying. Right? Why not?
Yes.
So let's go back and see what else Miss Cole says. See if she's saying anything interesting. I don't think that she's saying anything that's like out of the realm of, kind of like what we know just from experiencing the dating apps, right? I mean, so far this stuff is pretty. She says, set great but realistic expectations. Yeah. Dating apps are incredibly useful tools to meet new people, but sometimes it will only be that. If you are approaching every connection asking yourself, is this the one? You've entered dangerous territory. You will inevitably be disappointed by the answer. She advises asking a different question. Is this someone I want to see again? This will ensure you're setting realistic expectations for yourself and for your dates. I gotta say, so far, I feel like this woman is very, I think all of what she's saying is semi-accurate. Right. I just don't think that she's really like hitting the nail on the head as far as what makes dating apps workable. You know what I mean? Like some of this stuff is just the general obvious stuff if you've been doing it for a little while. I mean, to touch on what I was saying earlier, I think what makes it workable is clarity. Because even if you are on Tinder, because all you want to do is have sex with people, you will meet other people that are after the same thing, right?
I do. I agree. Exactly. There are so many apps out there that are very specific, Hot or Not, Bang, and some of the other apps that are just basically hookups. If that's what you're looking for, there's an app for that. Literally, the old iPhone commercials. There's an app for that, and there is. But it sounds like her idea is a bunch of generalities, almost not specific enough for somebody who's actually been involved with the apps or gone down deep. The idea of let's get offline soon is a great idea, but everybody has a different comfort level of how soon is. Some people are a week or 2 weeks. Some people are like, hey, we matched. Here's my number. Let's go see each other. But it also depends on what they're looking for in a relationship. People are hurt. People have baggage. People have experienced different things. So
that's what we want.
So the dating apps are going to vary slightly different for each person. There's probably some etiquette kind of things that are natural. You don't, hey, we match. Let's go have beer and porno sex right away. And that's of course, if I might be able to write an app for that. You never know, but for me, it's the initial spark. It's the piece that's missing in my life because I don't take the time to do it, or I don't have the time to do it based on everything going on. The ability to hit a match, start a conversation, and then carry it offline, I think, is what is key for me. I have a Tinder profile right now. I have a Bumble profile right now, and I actually have a Plenty of Fish profile because it's entertaining at best. A lot of the time, and there are good people on there. Don't get me wrong, but you get a couple interesting comments.
Wow.
But just the idea of creating the spark and initiating the conversation, I think, is what the apps are really, really good for, especially at my age. Now, my daughter is almost 20 years old.
Like, how do you even keep up with that, man?
She's a college student, and she's off at university. And she has over 500 matches on her Tinder profile, she told me. And I went, oh, wow, 500 matches. Well, I mean, but they have a great aggregate of students in one place. So she matches away, and she's like, I'm behind on my responses. I don't even know who to talk to. And exactly. I'm like, I got one. I got two. If I have a week where I have more than one match, I think I hit the lottery. It's like, hey, I could talk to two people. And then we start talking about what's the
right. We're having a conversation.
Like my dad, you matched with this person. You need to stop swiping for a while. I'm like, why? All we did was match. She goes, no, but you're talking to her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, talking. So, we also have to figure out what the difference is in what everybody's doing, because in my daughter's world, talking means dating. And in my world, talking means you and I are talking right now. The people are listening to us talk.
Right.
You have
to get up your Urban Dictionary. online.
So am I not allowed to
Look it up.
what's the rule?
Yeah, no, I agree about that. And I'm also a big advocate of I think at the age that we're at too, it's much easier to do this. But if I could teach younger people anything, I would want them to understand that it's okay to clarify what things are too, and to have open conversations about what you want, what you're doing, all of that stuff. I feel like that's something that we start to learn how to do as we get older. But it really does make the dating process so much less pressureful and so much more full of fun when everybody knows what everybody's doing. One person could think we're talking, and another person thinks that we're doing something else.
Speak. I'm out of
You know what I mean?
I'm done. I don't understand what's going on around me at all. That's it. I'm done. Let me go. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hit the key themes from the summer's exploration to the stuff that we're talking about now. It's about being comfortable with you. It's about, active and accurate and honest communication and some of the other things that without those, it doesn't matter what the app is. If you're not telling the truth on the app, if your profile is a farce, if your pictures don't match, if you're doing all the wrong things on there, you're going to have all the wrong outcomes. And, the whole dating process takes time. If you want a good quality relationship, beer and porno sex after you match and then the next day you're, taking care of business, then, oh my goodness, that's not going to be a quality relationship, I don't think. So, take the time, set the expectations, know who you are, know what you want, know what you're looking for, and look for that in a person.
So much
and
for coming
don't
on
accept
the show.
excuses. Don't accept something.
Also, I appreciate that you're always on. They're always listening. You said that sometimes you're at your daughter's soccer game on Monday nights, and you still come in and listen.
Ignore the red flags, or you start to ignore the things that you just don't want in a relationship, and you hope they get better. You end up in a bad relationship or the wrong relationship, and it's a little crazy when that happens.
I would have shouted her out. I would have explained it.
Thank you for having me here. I had fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate it. You know what's funny too? I was just thinking about back in high school when we knew each other back in the day. For whatever reason, even at 16, 17 years old, I always thought there was like a dad energy about you.
My phone was in my lap last
So it's no wonder that I get the sense that you're a really good dad.
Her first goal of the season,
especially from the other day when we were doing sound check and your daughter's I thought that was really sweet.
Quick to say, Tori scored.
I was like, I always knew Lee was going to be a dad.
Nobody would have understood that, but
you did.
But okay, I was really excited. Yeah, I was excited, but I held it in a little bit and just kept listening and watching the game at the same time.
I don't blame her.
It was scary.
I don't blame her at all. But anyway, I really appreciate you, and you're gonna have to come back again.
Yeah.
I
I succeeded there for sure. My oldest daughter is a daddy's girl, so she was really excited that I was going to get a chance to sit here and chat with you on a Monday night.
Difficulties. I feel like we've had those. Hopefully, those of you who are listening who have been listening or listen later haven't heard all the echoing that's going on.
Just in case she heard something, I don't know. She didn't really.
You passed it. You don't have the echo anymore.
About so
you did.
Yeah, I'm all right with it. It's okay. So
really, it's still totally. I mean, I feel like I can hear you, but then it's still kind of pulling my attention. Because right now I'm talking to you, I can hear you talking. What you just said 5 minutes ago.
Sit there and drink a glass of wine together while we talk.
Right. Totally. But anyway, thank you so much, Lee. I'm so glad that you were here. I want to tell everybody really quickly about my one-on-one coaching program, Super Seductive Singlehood. It's a 45-day intensive to help single city women over 35 uncover passion and purpose and attract a soulmate to support them in fulfilling it. So it's 6 weeks of intense mind, body, and spirit practice that will cause major shifts and transformation in every area of your life, in every area. And Lee, you touched on it earlier about how so many of us ignore our love lives. And what's going on in our culture, our political climate, all of that stuff, all of the negativity of the world, I believe, is just a symptom of the fact that we ignore our basic human need for love and connection. And when we're in that state, we don't make good decisions. We fight. We put other things above humanity, like our love lives, how we feel about ourselves, how our love lives mirror how we feel about ourselves, are the most important things that exist. And that's why I became a love coach, because without it, it's like, what is the point of being part of this human race, right? If we can't love each other and connect. So that's what my one-on-one program is all about. It's about getting back to what is most important. Like, we're out here thinking that it's about careers and it's about how much money we make and, all this other bullshit that means nothing. And then we get to a certain age or the end of our lives, and we realize that our ability to create partnerships, loving partnerships where we can support each other, where people forgive our weaknesses and admire our strengths and love us unconditionally, that is what you want to spend your life creating. Not all that other stuff will fall into line. All that other, the money will fall in, the career will fall in, everything else will fall in place if you just focus on the most important relationship in your life is the one with yourself, and then be able to create ones with others. Yeah, right. Anyway, so the dates for this October, if you're in the tri-state area, for ladies, I have a workshop on the 11th and on the 25th, and I want you guys to get registered. I will put the links on the in the comments down below. It's for Eventbrite. Get registered. I got 30 seconds left. And then also don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, Ask for Candy. I'm going to be putting these videos on very soon once I get them edited, and also my naked face walks on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram so you can see my naked face walks where I wear no makeup and it's just me and my do-rag and Scout, and we're taking walks and, doing our thing. And until next time, never forget you are a love machine. And if you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. Goodbye, Armed Radio. Armed Radio is going to leave us first, as they always do. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening in. And don't forget to email me, askforcandy@podcast@gmail.com. Those of you who are here on the Facebook Live, I see Marionette, Jeff, Bob joined us, Vanessa at some point, Montgomery, Roberta.